you know, you have to pay more income tax rather than getting a return. I said, you can just, you know, I'm not telling you, I'm only filing a return this year, it's left to you. I'll just say, let it go. But he was such a good guy, he went back to them and said, nobody could find out where that number came from. The guy called me from Jackson Hewitt. He said, I'll look into it and I'll get back to you. He never did. So what we had to do is we helped him out. He said, you go back and tell him to refile last year with the correct income, for which he had to pay that $400 back, pay the $400 thing, and then this year he had to pay. So he ended up paying $1,600 overall. But the only thing Jackson Hewitt said, we are very happy to refile because of an error that was made. So we're not
that's so
charging you
nice of him.
$195. I want to get up and slap that guy a couple of times. You know?
You will see stuff like that, but, you know, we just gotta do our best, try and help them as much as we can. But encourage taxpayer to use direct deposit, they're gonna get it much quicker. If they use the direct deposit, they will, a Form 8880 will be generated, you'll see that. So any taxpayers that are receiving the child tax credit, or the earned income tax credit, they're not gonna get, their refund will not be processed till after February 15th. And you definitely have to tell those people that. 'Cause if they're in here that early and they're getting a big refund, they're gonna want it, so make sure you let them know. And if the taxpayer owes, we usually go over the different, payment methods, you know.
What are the rules for filing extensions? I know, based off of what I was reading a few days ago, it says, if you believe that you're gonna owe something on your tax return, that says to go ahead and file and pay what you can,
Yes.
and then you can sort out like a payment plan, but what if like, like you've got some extraordinary circumstances, either with family or medical, and you cannot file, and you do an extension, is there anything that's saying you have 6 more months, or is there any?
So, do we file extensions? I don't think we do, or I've never filed an
I
extension.
know you have to follow.
The VITA, what VITA says is yes, you wanna file as soon as you can. You don't wanna wait to file because you're gonna owe. You wanna file and then the IRS will work out a payment plan with you. That's what we're told to tell taxpayers. I've never filed an extension. Have you all?
Not that I can
And VITA
remember.
doesn't talk about it
You
in
know, I think that.
any of the
My
trainings.
boss does that on April 15th.
I mean, most CPAs pretty much
Yeah, he
file
just-
an extension for every single
Yeah.
outstanding
Yeah.
return on the
The big
15th,
ones.
but yeah, but we don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gail, have we ever?
I remember doing one last year, but it was some kind of circumstance, and I think Barb and Jan handled that. I mean, I don't
Yes.
know, it would probably be one of us that would
Yeah,
do
you
that
definitely wanna go
if they
to
come
the
back
site
in. Yeah.
coordinator if someone's trying to file an extension.
Well, I've
Yeah.
had friends that, you know, past employers, they took either forever to send them their W-2s, or even there was errors in the W-2s that prevented them from being sent, so, you know, I'm just, you know,
So
trying to-
yeah, I guess in
Yeah.
that case, you
Trying
wanna
to
file an
see-
extension,
Yeah.
but again, like, typically we don't. So if you got someone trying to file an extension, just go talk to one of the site coordinators and they'll work
There's
that
a-
out with you.
There's a 4484, something like that, and they can.
I'm sure tax slayer,
They can just print it out.
yeah.
I think I've done that.
I think,
Print
and
it
I
out.
also, I wrote this down, but I'm gonna say it now, if someone is filing an amendment, you cannot file an amendment electronically.
Yeah.
You have to print it out and mail
Well,
it. I have done that.
And
You
if
cannot file an amendment electronically.
If it's for the present year, you have to wait until you
Till-
have the time to process your first return.
Yes, so you can't just process a return and then process that
process it,
amendment
right.
on top of it. You have to wait till they've accepted it and processed it and then do the amendment. So you're gonna go over different payment methods. If they owe, I usually help them out a lot. I'll usually highlight the address that they need to send it to. I'll help them fill out their remittance form, just whatever you think that they need, in order to do that. And you can talk to them about that. So quality review, every return is reviewed by an experienced preparer. Every single return needs to be reviewed by someone other than yourself, without fail. The reviewer is gonna look over the intake form, and they're gonna look at the completed return on the computer screen. So, and then I know a lot of times as reviewers, we're gonna ask the taxpayer questions. Maybe some of the same questions that you asked them, but just to get clarification on things. It's pretty typical for us to interact with the preparer, and the return should not be printed until the final, and you shouldn't tell them that they are getting a certain refund until after someone reviews it, which I screw up and usually will tell them. I'll be like, oh, you're getting this much, but
They're
you should,
looking at it. so.
and they can usually see it. But if you can avoid telling them till after someone reviews it, that's good, because if something's wrong and you went from telling them they're gonna get $2,000 back to they owe $30, it's pretty rough. So try to avoid that if you can. The return is being filed electronically through TaxSlayer. You're just gonna print one copy to give to the taxpayer. If it's gonna be being mailed, you're gonna print 2 copies, one for the taxpayer to keep for the records and one to mail. And you can help them, you can show, if they're filing a paper return, you can kind of show them where to sign and all that stuff. Okay. Okay, are you guys ready for ACA, or do you want to take a break?
Keep going.
I think Carol's gonna boycott this one, right?
You want me to-
So I spent a lot of time on this so that Carol will be a whiz at the Affordable Care Act.
I always helped her out with that, so.
Yeah. It just will not penetrate. My
We just
brain.
don't want it to.
It must be because I don't agree with it or something.
This is our first time looking at the new 1040. It's a postcard. It's half the size, less than half the
Oh my
size.
goodness.
But I don't know if you guys can see this little box over here. Full year health coverage, you check it on the front of the 1040, which is very different, right there. And there's a bunch of changes. But I think a lot of people thought that we weren't gonna have to do anything with it because it was repealed. No,
Nope.
it's pretty much exactly the same, except I think, in my opinion, it's a bit easier to get someone an exemption than it used to be. But, so they're still required to have an exemption, coverage, or pay a penalty. So that's great. Coverage questions, page 1, it was on line 61. So you can claim your hardship exemptions directly on the Form 1040 now, which is unusual because it used to be, well, you wouldn't, it's actually on one of the schedules, it's not directly on the Form 1040, I don't know why I said that. But you used to have to get a market certificate to get an exemption. You'd have to file for a hardship exemption through the marketplace. Now you can make that decision and claim an exemption for them. And
That
then,
sounds good.
yeah, it's much better.
better.
So fewer people will be required to do the Form 8965. In fact, it says that the only time you're really gonna have an 8965 is if they have a combination of exemptions and possible penalty months. So that's nice. So there's some new general hardship exemptions. So these exemptions used to require a separate form, now they don't. So there's 3 types. There's financial hardship, plan choice hardship, and personal hardship. So a person has to have minimal essential coverage. I'm just gonna real quick. That could be COBRA coverage, group coverage, retiree coverage. They can get it through the marketplace, Medicare, CHIP, TRICARE, and there's certain other coverages. So they gotta have it still. So in TaxSlayer, it's gonna prompt you to enter the months of coverage. And I found out with the salary reduction agreement. Do you guys know, have you seen that? It'll ask you, is there a salary reduction agreement in TaxSlayer? Do y'all remember that? They do ask you. What that is it's the amount taken out of the taxpayer's paycheck by the employer to pay for health insurance. You have to add that back as income. So that deduction that comes out of their W-2 every year, that's technically considered income. And when TaxSlayer prompts you for that, you have to put the total year's worth. It'll be on their W-2, but it's the money that was taken out.
So in the new W-2 will not include that addition, or will it, at the gross income, does it include the co-pay?
You know, if we fill in all the
If you
boxes,
fill in all the boxes,
then tax
Yeah, that's-
should
yeah.
just.
Yeah, I don't know why
That
it
doesn't
makes
make
you do
sense.
it. Maybe that has something to do with, the amount is taken out of the taxpayer, it must be added back as income. But that's what the salary reduction agreement question is.
But when you put the W-2 info, it say column
It
one,
should.
rental attached, you know, that's what we're gonna put. We're not gonna go back and add that money,
Yeah,
you know.
it should
No,
all
no,
be
no,
in
we're
there.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should all be in there.
But I guess when it prompts you for that, just put that in. Is what, I don't know, that's what they said, so
We
we
won't know
can look
until
into.
You won't know till we do it.
Yeah,
You are coming back to Bristol for tax season, aren't you?
no. Literally cannot even imagine. Okay, let's see here. The amount is. You'll be asked if the household, okay. Tax layer will automatically calculate if a taxpayer meets the income below filing threshold, exemption due to circumstances. Okay, so. Oops. Okay. So when tax layer, you're gonna punch in when they had their insurance. You guys remember how to do that for what months, and then you're gonna say that they had insurance and all that, and then it's gonna ask you if the household qualifies for an exemption due to circumstances. Do you all kind of remember? And you would hit yes, and then it'll lead you to choose an exemption. If you hit no, that they don't, then it'll prompt you to do some other stuff, but we'll get into that after. So exemption due to circumstances is your best bet. But if you think that their only problem is that it's unaffordable, then we're gonna go into the next thing that you have to do. But for right now, we'll just go over, if you say yes, that they do meet an exemption, here are the codes. Insurance is considered unaffordable, short coverage gap, citizens living abroad, healthcare, members of Indian tribe, incarceration. Hardships including resident of a state that did not expand Medicaid, that does apply for Virginia, does not apply for Tennessee. Virginia just expanded Medicaid for this year though, so just keep that in mind. But for now, as of 2018, they had not expanded Medicaid. And I know most of you we've used this G a lot, because if they are under 143% of the poverty line, then they can get this exemption.
So they upped it this year from 128 to 143.
I have it written down. Well, I'll get into that in a second. Yeah, member of tax council born died or. Okay. To claim general hardship exemptions, code G is hardships or it's in the state that didn't expend Medicaid. So we have financial hardships, homeless, evicted, received a utility shut-off notice, filed for bankruptcy, had medical debt. You were ineligible for Medicaid in the state that did not expand Medicaid. So a lot of the people we have will fit one of these criteria, and now you can just say, okay, you don't have to wait, you don't have to send it off to the marketplace. If they say, I had a utility shut off notice, then you say, okay, code G, and they're exempted. So I think that's what makes it a little easier.
Virginia has Medicaid
They just expanded Medicaid
for 19 or 8?
for 19. They didn't expand Medicaid back when
It
the
went
first
into
health
effect
reform.
January 1st this year.
January 1st
Yeah.
of this year, yeah.
What about that medical debt in the last 20? Okay, I went to the doctor yesterday, yeah, I had $5 copay.
I mean,
Well, it's supposed to be, well, it used to be debt that you were having to pay on and you were having a hard time paying it.
yeah,
You know,
and now it
there
just.
used to be a criteria, but now they can just say, yeah, I have medical debt and we can.
I'm
just
not paying
do-
my bills.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, and I found out late in the year last year that G was just being pretty much given to anybody.
Yeah,
And,
Yeah,
I
probably.
really wish I had known that sooner.
and they've actually
All right.
broadened it to be
People.
looser this year than it was last
Okay,
year.
All right, so.
So I'm not saying like, just,
Everybody will get a G.
I had a lot of issues when I filed my taxes, last year about this time, with the mandate, because, you know, I was expecting a refund, and then when I put, my income and what was, reported just based off of the Obamacare guidelines as to how much they give you credit for, although that I paid, you know, what Obamacare, like the prices were, it still charged me the full penalty as if I did not have it at all, so, you know, it,
I'll show you in a second how we do that and
Okay.
probably
and then I was
why.
told by them, you know, it was a an update that they had, and, you know, there was something to worry about, but when I did my taxes, you know, it slapped me with like a $795, you know, penalty when I had it all year. My income was only off by like 3,000.
You had it all year?
Yeah, I had it all year, so.
I don't know why that would be then.
So it's just something that even, I'm sure we'll see a lot of people, when we do their returns, that they're gonna
Who did
pay
yours?
a lot.
Why didn't you have one of us do your return?
Well, I probably should have.
Yeah.
I still got
That's
some.
my advice.
Well, I still got some back, but it's just the fact that, you know, I had it all year, and I still had to pay more than what the full
Yeah.
penalty was.
Did you have to pay, oh, did they pay part of your insurance?
Part of it, yes.
Is that what you were paying back?
That,
You didn't pay the penalty, you were,
it ended up being more than what the penalty would be, assuming you didn't have it at all for the year. So I tried to adjust my income based off of my wages the year before, and, you know, I was told by them there was no need to do that because, you know, it wasn't gonna have any effect as to if I would owe. So I said, okay, that's fine, but then when I did my taxes, it slapped me $795 penalty for that. So I'm not sure if that's gonna have an effect on people we're gonna do their taxes for now, or,
What I noticed was
does
that,
that make sense?
yeah, you know, when you went to this ACA thing last year, you know, based on the menu, it took you two different ways, you know?
Yes.
And you really had to figure out, kind of sit back and reflect on which way is the best way to kind of navigate this thing. And most of them landed up on this G,
Yes.
you know, because not eligible for this thing, you know? But if you didn't put the right in, it took you the wrong place.
Well,
And I've seen.
and I'm gonna show you how to work through that.
Right,
If you can't get to this page, I'm gonna show you how you can work through, I know what you're talking about. So if you hit due to other exemption due to circumstances, if you hit no, that takes you into the silver plan,
Yeah.
bronze plan. I'm gonna show you how to do that right now. Hopefully you won't have to, because they can probably meet this, but if they don't, cause it's a whole thing. So we'll go into that. Oh, and you're awaiting a marketplace decision, so. So the new general hardship exemptions, plan choice hardships, this is new. So you lived in a county with only one issuer offering coverage and can show the lack of choice precluding enrollment. And I'll show you, I have a resource that you can go to check on that. All affordable plans provided, so like if you have an issue with all the affordable plans provided due to your beliefs, you don't have to, and then you experience a personal circumstance where no plans covered some kind of specialized care that you have. So this is like plan issues. So this county thing, let me see if where did I put it? Okay, well, I'll show you in a second. There's a website that you go to that has every county in the US, and it has every county that only has one option highlighted. So apparently, this lack of choice alone will allow you to claim one of these plan choice hardships. And a lot of the counties around here just have one, but I'll show you that in a second. Okay, so personal hardships, experienced a disaster that resulted in property damage, you experienced domestic violence, a close family member died, that's pretty general. They didn't specify how close of a family member. So if you're going through something.
Had a distant cousin.
Yeah, are you really sad?
You'll
I
have
guess
to
is
follow
what
the
they're.
motions, but that's.
So, your child was denied Medicaid or CHIP because, someone is required to provide them coverage and they might not be doing so. And you experienced another hardship that prevented you from obtaining coverage. I read that as like, I don't know.
I was sad on July 27th.
I couldn't apply.
Hey, this is what happens when you have a 2,000-page tax bill, which nobody reads, and got read overnight and got passed the next day in the morning, you know?
So, yes.
So,
Okay, here's that resource I was talking about. So, certain non-citizens and citizens living abroad do not have to have health care coverage, but some of them do. So this link right here, and I'm going to send out this PowerPoint, but this link right here will show you the type of status that they have. They qualify for the marketplace, so they can't get the exemption on being non-citizens if they fall into any of these. Then the other one, I was talking about was, let's see. So this is that shows Medicaid eligibility that did not get expanded, which, like I said, Virginia changed. So living in a county with only one issuer, you all see that? Oh. Huh. Well, it's a really cool map that for some reason I can't show you. I'm afraid to end the slideshow. Is it worth it?
No, don't end it.
Okay.
We don't wanna go through it again.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, this is I'll send this to you, but there's a website that will show you.
You're gonna send it to
Yeah, so, okay. All right, plan affordability oops. So, here we go. We're gonna do, okay, I really do have to get out of it now to do what I was gonna do.
I think G just sounds real good. for the whole
That
season
was
for
not what
everybody.
I
That's what it says,
Yeah.
G's for good, so pick it.
That sounds good.
That's right. Well,
And I won't even come and ask you.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'll just, okay, I'll look at you, all right?
Just a head nod and.
we'll just make that our standard. Use G for everybody.
Okay, I wanted to show you guys this link, but for some reason you can't see it.
The Russians have hacked you.
So this is how to go through the affordability exemption. I guess you guys can look at it on your own. But basically, it's how to calculate, so there's a tool, that the Health Reform Beyond the Basics.org, they made a tool where you can, type in how much they make and, type in all the stuff in the boxes to see if the plans available to them are more than more than a certain portion of their income. I really wish you could see what I'm looking at right now. Oh well. Hopefully you won't even have to go through the affordability exemption because they'll have a hardship, or they'll just have health care. But, you all can look on. I don't know, do you all wanna see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
No? You don't care?
Oh, that looks.
Yeah.
Is that Carol's retirement home? Or
I'm
where it's located at?
gonna convince
Well,
you.
you saw
more
something?
sand.
She needs more sand.
California.
What part is the desktop?
Oh, it was just the desktop, okay.
Oh.
Well, okay, so basically, if they don't fit any of those hardships that we were talking about, you are going to ask them, you're gonna look at, do they have an offer through their employer? And you'll look to see if that's considered affordable. If they don't, then you're gonna look if they have an offer through their spouse's employer, you're gonna see if that's affordable. It's a certain percentage. If it's over a certain percentage of their income, it's unaffordable. And then if they don't have either of those, then you're gonna go look at the silver plan, the bronze plan, you're gonna calculate that and see if it's more than a certain percentage of their income to get the affordability exemption.
In other words, A. G or A, okay, got that.
But if you go through the program, it calculates everything for you. You
Yeah,
just
I mean, you
plug
can do it in
numbers.
tax slayer.
You just plug in.
So the mandate applies just for this year's taxes, but starting from next year, it looks like it goes away, is that correct?
Well, that's what they said about this year,
Yeah.
so I have no
Well,
idea.
so we're doing taxes for this season, the mandate still applies because the 2018 year, the mandate was still in effect, but because starting from January 1st of this year, the mandate is taken off. So when we do taxes next year, they're not gonna have to owe anything.
You won't have to,
Unless they would reinstate that rule.
well, that's good. They told us it would be that way this year though, that's why I'm like,
I think it's confusing just because you're either talking about the 2018 tax year or like the 2019 tax season, so that's, just the year.
yeah, I'm talking about the 2018 tax year.
Yeah, and that,
But I imagine the 2019 tax season, I hope it goes away by then, just for our sake, but. All right, so here are we're almost done. Is everyone hanging in there? This is it. We'll go through it real fast. Highlights of income tax changes. Form 1040 is so different. 1040EZ and 1040A are discontinued. It is half the size, 79 lines to 23. It is only 1 page now instead of 2, which is just crazy. And then the IRS has 6 new schedules. So these are all the schedules: additional income, tax, credits, other taxes, other payments, foreign address and third party designee. So you're probably not even gonna use Schedule 6, or Schedule 4 really. You'll probably have 5, 3, 2, and 1.
So, Schedule 1, additional income, so will we have an actual Schedule C or D?
You're still gonna have Schedule
Yeah.
C, and I think it's, well, let's look here. So it's gonna, what is this?
I think that's what the post.
This is
Page
Schedule
2.
1. Is this page 2 of the
That's
1040?
page 2.
That's not what I meant to have
I
there.
didn't think we were supposed to have page 2.
No, okay, here it is.
Okay.
So you would still have a Schedule C. It would report to Schedule 1, and then Schedule 1 would report to 1040. You only need to know this for reviewing purposes.
Well,
So this is just to make it simpler, right? As opposed
I guess,
for
is
that
what-
postcard.
I guess.
No, it
I
is.
see that.
So right here, so line 12 of the Schedule 1 is where you're gonna report your Schedule C.
Okay, but somewhere we've got to have a C where we're gonna take off any deductions.
Yeah, so you'll have a Schedule C, and the Schedule C will report to Schedule 1, and Schedule 1 will
Now,
report to
is
the
that
1040.
stupid or what?
It is.
Excuse me.
I don't love it, but
They simplified it, that they added a step.
I think it's just good to come from the C to the front page.
Yeah.
I would go with that.
right? So yeah, there's gonna be a chain of reporting now.
Yeah, but the computer does it all, so.
Yeah, this is really only for reviewers who might wanna go and actually look at the schedules. Okay, more changes, new individual tax rates, new standard deduction, deduction for personal exemptions suspended, we talked about that earlier, that's gonna be, it's a big one. Child tax credit has increased, we'll go into that, and, new qualified business income deduction, which I don't know that that's really gonna affect us much. So, pretty much all doubled. These are the new rates. Pretty crazy. Child tax credit is now increased to $2,000 per child. Additional child tax credit is limited to $1,400 per child. If they have an ITIN, they no longer can get the child tax credit. That kind of makes sense, with sort of some of the policy we're seeing. Impact of credit for other dependents. Subject to. So the other dependents credit is the one I was talking about, that's 500, or where did I put that? Oh, also, you can, the phase out for the child tax credit, you can make a lot of money and still get the child tax credit now,
That's good.
so. Yeah, it was 110 and now it's $400,000.
We won't see that.
No, we will not see them, just interesting to note, that's a huge jump.
Yeah.
And I'll go into, so this is a $500 non-refundable credit for other
Now,
dependents.
who's other dependents?
So that's like qualifying relatives. Anyone that's not a child, that's your dependent.
It's not the husband or wife. So
No,
we,
that-
so we still don't get
dependents.
anything.
Yeah.
Can it be if you have, like, if you're taking care of a child that's, of your grandchild, for example, is that,
Yeah, well, if you're providing more than half of their
Yes.
care.
I have my granddaughter.
Yeah, so you would, they're a dependent for you. They're not a qualifying child, so you can't get the 2,000 tax credit, but you can get the $500 non-refundable credit for other dependents. And that would be what you would get if you had an adult living with you that you were providing more than half their care.
So you can't take it
Or
for your
for
children,
their
but you
living
can
with
take it for stray people that are living with you. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
This is the boyfriend.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And there's not a social security number required. I don't know what's going on.
Cats and dogs are going back. on
Yeah,
their
like
turf.
I don't know.
I think cats bad.
That's pretty good.
If this is for a boyfriend, you have a very bad boyfriend.
Look into
Obviously,
it.
my dog doesn't know the name, so I should be able to just just claim them without any problem now.
That's
That's
stupid.
Okay,
I don't
because
know.
If kids have to have the social.
Well, it's a
Yeah.
non-refundable, so at least it's not like people are getting
Limited.
straight
Just loans,
cash
yeah.
for
People
it.
hear about that though, they're gonna be,
I don't
They're
know.
gonna be multiplying.
well, they're
Absolutely,
other dependents, but they still have to be claimed as a dependent?
But here's the thing,
yeah.
See, when you
Still
go into,
have to
yeah,
put
but-
them on.
but under the qualifying dependent, you
Yeah.
have to put social security number, right?
Yeah,
So I mean, that will pull from that info to this.
I know, I just thought about that.
I mean, it's just, don't worry, those guys are pretty smart.
I got